Love the British monarchy? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the To Die For Daily Podcast with Kinsey Schofield. Take it away, Kinsey.
Hi everyone, Kinsey Schofield here, and I wanted to let you know that I have a new daily show on YouTube called Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, where I talk to royal commentators, entertainment reporters, and a lot of behind the scenes of my last trip to London, which was an absolute blast. But we've got airs and spares regularly with Katie Nichol and Rupert Bell, Pump Up the Jam with Christo Fufus. It's just great content on a regular basis. I started that a few months ago. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I have a very sweet producer that helps me and an editor that helps me do everything. So a lot more resources. Again, that's Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered on YouTube. Additionally, I just wanted to thank a few of the women that I stumbled upon during my trip to London. Several of you approached me and said, "Are you Kinsey?" And they said they loved the podcast. And I was just so happy to meet you. And you lit the fire under me to get back and jump back into the podcast. I've been so busy with Kinsey Unfiltered that I have not updated the show in quite some time. So today we're going to talk to PR guru and royal expert Richard Fitzwilliams about all things Harry and Meghan. The latest news that has dropped is that Harry has been nominated, will accept the Pat Tillman Award at the ESPYs. A lot of controversy surrounding that. Not only because Pat Tillman has such an incredible legacy, just unbelievable shoes to fill, which when Prince Harry accepts the award, he has got to acknowledge that, like that there's no comparison. And then also Meghan's show has wrapped filming, and I think we'll see that within the next 6 months. So I talked to PR expert Richard Fitzwilliams about what's their ultimate goal? What's their objective in some of this trophy collecting? I know some of you have reached out to me and said they felt like it was a visa issue. I actually talked to an immigration attorney who said, no way, that doesn't justify all the trophies Meghan Markle has collected over the last few years. So Richard Fitzwilliams talked to me about the public relations aspect of them collecting some of these trophies. And we also talk about, is this make or break for Harry and Meghan's relationship with Netflix? Meghan's cooking show is this what everything depends on, the success of this show? Because that's really what some of these other outlets, including the Daily Beast, are saying. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for sticking with me. And I really appreciate you and love you. Thanks. Hi, all. Welcome to the To Die For Daily Podcast. I'm Kinsey Schofield with my dear friend, Richard Fitzwilliams. You are a PR guru and a royal expert. And I honestly, we've been having a 15-minute conversation off camera that was so good that I suggested that perhaps we should start recording and have the chat now. I wanted to ask you from a PR perspective. We were discussing Harry and Meghan off camera, and you were saying some really interesting things. Could Harry and Meghan's PR team be trying to change public perception, which has been relatively negative here in the States, by engaging in some of these trophy committees that we've been seeing lately? The Aviation Trophy Award, the ESPYs that is creating so much controversy right now. Are they trying to convince the general public that they're good people by having these award shows tell us that they're worthy of these statues?
I would suggest that that was very, very definitely one of the prongs whereby Harry and Meghan, looking at various ways. We've got the faux royal trips. Nigeria was successful enough on that level. If you think of what they could have done had they remained, of course, senior working royals, that's a totally different argument. You could have achieved some real, very, very substantial work for the causes that they believe in. But so far as these awards are concerned, this is causing enormous controversy. But there's no question at all that Serena Williams, for example, this has largely been overlooked. She is hosting the ESPYs, and also she is a friend of Meghan's, and she's also close friend of Meghan's is actually a genuine one. There are those who attended their wedding, who are most certainly not close. The facts of the matter are undoubtedly that the Sussexes see that an array of these awards, and some of them, I mean, to have Harry in the Hall of Living Legends of Aviation, and with Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong have been, I mean, that obviously was utter farce. The Ripple of Hope Award for those who are supportive of social change and justice. This was the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization. I mean, that rang hollow so far as I was concerned. But this one, I mean, the big controversy, of course, is about the Pat Tillman Award and the fact that he is such an American hero. I have to say that when I first heard that Harry was getting it, the Excellence in Sports Performance yearly, I thought of Invictus, and as we know, he's commemorated 10 years of a project that is absolutely remarkable. I mean, this is something together with Sentibalin Lesotho and also with the Well Child that he was involved in before he married. And I didn't think that it was inappropriate that he should get an award for that. What, however, has clearly come out of what is happening with some 60,000 people, and there's still some time to go before the 11th of July, having protested about it. And of course, Pat Tillman's mother, Mary, very, very strong personal attack. What this clearly appears to be, obviously, I don't know I haven't seen lists of the individuals involved. I mean, it's perfectly well that there are a large number of people who cannot stand the Sussexes, and it's possible some of them are involved. But what seems to be at issue is an issue not of judging the Invictus, which is undoubtedly remarkable for wounded servicemen and women who are both serving and also veterans. The facts are, however, it's a matter of character. And there are those who believe, many who believe, that Harry's behaviour, especially since he stepped down with Meghan as senior working royals, they wanted to step, but they wanted a half in, half out. They didn't get it. So he launched with Meghan a series of attacks on the royal family, and we all know about Oprah, we all know about Harry and Meghan on Netflix, we all know about Spare and the interviews that were surrounding it, which have caused a lot of trouble, including personal attacks on Queen Camilla. All of this, and the way they've handled it, has led a lot of people to believe that for this particular award, Harry is, though initially it appeared to me that he would have been, is not suitable. And it's an interesting gauge of views in the United States. I mean, the fact that, according to Newsweek, Meghan's popularity, I just saw a recent poll, has actually gone up, and Harry's isn't that bad. But the facts of the matter are that a lot of people feel very, very strongly that if you monetize your connections with your family and also trash them, that in itself is a totally disreputable and dishonorable thing to do. And with that, I certainly go along with.
That surprises me that Meghan's popularity would go up recently, because one of the questions I had for you was, was it inappropriate for Meghan to announce American Riviera Orchard, weeks after the king revealed his cancer diagnosis, and, probably a month or two before we actually heard from the Princess of Wales that she was struggling with or preparing for preventative cancer treatment with chemo, in the midst of the Where's Kate kind of hysteria. And so that's interesting to me that Meghan's popularity would go up, because I felt like that was in such poor taste.
I think that American Riviera Orchard, it seems to be, I'd say, pretty harmless. I'd say it was a sort of Tig too. We all remember her Tig, Grace of nickname rather from Tignanello, which apparently was her favourite wine. I mean, this seems to be an attempt, together with her Netflix program and cookery, which apparently, reportedly, she's finished filming. That will be interesting to see. It'll also be interesting to see how many people watch it, as it will also be interesting to see how many people watch Harry's on polo, which is an elitist sport for Netflix, because their contract runs out next year. So that will be very interesting. But so far as the way Meghan's promoted American Riviera Orchard, she's not done much. And what strikes me is the lack of A-listers who've responded in support. I mean, so far as the royal family are concerned, I don't think they care one way or the other what she does about this particular line, because it's a sort of lifestyle series of things. We've got raspberry jam, and they've got, and so on and so forth. Dog biscuits, I understand, also it's been reported, but she's done very little. The point, however, as far as the Sussexes are concerned, that if they're happy, if they do reasonably well, and we don't know what reasonably well means to them because they've been so erratic, as well you know, because you've studied this for such a long time and in such detail. The facts are, however, that if Harry and Meghan, if they don't get A-listers support, top polo players and so forth, the Serena Williams level is A-list. I mean, one has to be frank about that. They could always be tempted to, well, there were reports originally they were considering up to 4 books. One of them could be Meghan's memoir, one of them could be the 400 pages Harry said were cut from Spare because he thought they would cause problems. Another one could be his memoir when a child, and so forth. So you could get more trouble in the future. So I would have thought it would be better to encourage what they're doing, because they're not actually doing very much. But what they seem to be doing appears to be on a sort of level with what they can cope with. Whether this ever reaches A-list levels, that's, I suspect not. I mean, one thinks of 2021 when they were on Time, you remember the Time 100. Well, I mean, would they be on such a list today? Certainly they wouldn't.
No, that's really good. I like that you use the word erratic to describe kind of their path, because that's spot on. You mentioned Serena Williams. I pulled this. I love reading Facebook comments from local Los Angeles news stations, because to me that, it gives me a sense of how Harry and Meghan's neighborhood. I mean, they're in Montecito, but still they're trying to impress Los Angeles, right? And there was a post about how Pat Tillman's award was controversial, Prince Harry receiving this award. And one individual said, "The only one being divisive is Pat Tillman's mom. Harry has bent over backwards to help wounded warriors." Another comment underneath it says, "Harry only bends over backwards if Meghan drops one of her blood diamonds." A comment underneath that says, "What does this have to do with Meghan Markle, Harry's wife?" And just to your point, it does have to do with Harry's wife. Serena Williams, as you said, is very close to Meghan Markle. They've been friends with each other since, I believe, before Suits. It was a volleyball game for DirecTV that they met. It was a promotional event. And not only has Serena appeared on Meghan's podcast, attended her wedding, but Serena's also expected to appear in Prince Harry's new polo show. So I do think it's fair to make the connection between Meghan Markle, this award, Serena Williams, and Prince Harry.
Absolutely, and also you've got Nacho Figueres, who's known as the David Beckham of polo. He seems close to Harry. He's helping to promote Meghan's artifacts, shall we call them? I mean, apparently there are going to be quite a few. So I don't think there's a problem with what she's doing with that and what's happening with the royal family. But I do think that, for example, to have a post the morning of tripping the colour was spectacularly ill-timed, simply because first it was meaningless. It was a dog biscuits and a raspberry jam, as I remember, and secondly, the Sussexes always had this idea that they could steal the thunder of the royal family by not observing the fact that, obviously, if you're royal and you've engagements, you don't make news that's going to interrupt news for other members of the royal family. The way the Sussexes handled it, I always remember when the then Cambridges were in Boston and the Earthshot Prize, and you had the Netflix trailer that was released. I think, oh, sorry, just
I
correcting
forgot
myself.
about that. That was so like shameless. I completely forgot about that. So thank you for reminding me that and then you saw here comes David Beckham arriving on the green carpet, and you knew that that was another big power move, that the royal family was saying the Beckhams are now siding with us. No longer are they entertaining Harry and Meghan. Oh, what a night that was.
Oh, it was. But one of the extraordinary aspects of the Beckhams and their relations with the Sussexes, as far as we know, all these reports, of course, that the accusations about the supposedly the Beckhams may have talked about these private details about the Sussexes or words to that effect. But the extraordinary thing is the Beckhams, of course, are really A-list. You can't get much higher. And of course, for Harry to be in London for the 10th anniversary of Invictus, commemoration of 10 years of Invictus, and then have his father and he don't meet for whatever reason remains in something in debate. And you see that King Charles has met David Beckham and made him an ambassador for his foundation. And they met during that time. Well, it speaks volumes. These are the ways you get to the Sussexes, in a sense, because with the Beckhams, I mean, reportedly the Beckhams weren't asked to the dinner after their wedding, or so I read. So you've got this so-called relationship which was developing at one time. I understand that mutual members of each other's staffs were the reason for the original connection, and then Meghan was promoting Victoria's clothes and so forth, and Beckham was Invictus supposedly, and Harry reportedly snubbed him. You get all these very strange rumours. It didn't make sense. The Beckhams are people they should be or have cultivated, and they don't seem to have done it well. But equally, I think fair enough that David and Victoria simply don't want to be associated with
That drama.
with the drama that the Sussexes have brought on themselves by monetizing, as we all know, the way their links with the royal family. I mean, it has been deplorable, and it's found its way clearly into the anger over the Pat Tillman Award.
I'm so glad you went back there, because I was looking at my questions, realizing I skipped through some. So that was the perfect segue. This is why you're the perfect guest. Richard Eden said a show business source in the US told him, these awards are great for keeping Harry and Meghan in the news. They boost their profile at a time when they are not producing much work. Their agents love awards too, as they keep everyone happy. Will this, specifically the Pat Tillman Award, work with the general public? Will this turn some people into Harry and Meghan fans? Or will they see through it, especially with people like Pat Tillman's mother speaking out against it, and a petition that, I mean, to me, I look at this and I have never seen so much hatred towards Prince Harry in the last 4 years. I know there's been a lot of anger, but I've never seen it organized. Maybe organized isn't the right way, but it was incredibly courageous of Pat Tillman's mom to come out and say she disagreed with it, because she has received a lot of negative attention because of that. So I just feel like it's almost magnified, this kind of people not liking Harry and Meghan. I'm feeling it magnified right now.
I'm wondering whether it's going to be advantageous that it's magnified so far as the royal family are concerned, because we don't know exactly where this is going to go. The 50,000 who've protested, they may be up, say, another 10, 20,000, maybe more. Obviously, it will overshadow a lot of press comment of the awards. But on the other hand, their publicists will be working very hard to get those shots of them, no doubt, with Serena and so on. I can't help feeling that they do collect these awards and there will be more awards in the future, but we have to ask, what will they do to justify them? On this particular case, Harry can quote Invictus, that is a fact. And it's 10 years of it, and it was a very good award, a good creation, and no doubt. But it does mean that the Sussexes are deeply divisive, and the fact there have been so many who protested may mean that people hesitate a little before putting them up for an award in the future, possibly. On the other hand, how big are they actually going to get? And we don't know the answer to that question. Is Meghan going to go into politics? I'd have thought certainly it might be a good time if she was. We've had speculation about this for years.
And
Well,
instead, we're getting jam, Richard. We're getting jam. It just doesn't feel right. It just feels a little, like you said, erratic.
well, they are. The Sussexes have known that they've been unpredictable because they've been attacking the royal family, as you know. And of course, it's seldom, if at all, the royals can hit back. They can't.
No.
Unless the one-liner that stuck, of course, is some recollections may vary, which Queen Elizabeth said after the Oprah interview. But the Oprah interview was like a nuclear weapon that was fired at Buckingham Palace. It's still doing harm among the young and among the Commonwealth. It's around the world it caused problems. One remembers, as the royal family remember, that Prince Philip was very ill in hospital and indeed dead just over a month later. This is something they won't forget.
Absolutely.
Oprah, a shameless thing to do. It was scandalously insensitive. And also, it was full of inaccuracies.
Well, and today I watch back on that, which is hard to do, by the way. Thankfully, I grabbed it when it first came out, but they don't want it out there. It was almost immediately pulled from CBS.com and CBS streaming services. This is not an interview that they want to just linger. I have a sneaky suspicion that was a very emotional decision. And there are probably a lot of regrets when it comes to that Oprah Winfrey interview. They might not admit it out loud, but you watch that and you see a lot of resentment and a lot of bitterness about silly things like titles and tiaras. And the reality is time does heal wounds. And I feel like the further they get away from it, hopefully they look at that and say, well, that was wildly inaccurate that I said my son wasn't receiving a title because he was not a 100% white baby. That was not true at all. You lied and you never acknowledged lying.
Yes, absolutely. And this is also a problem for them in the future. If, for example, Meghan did, say, go into politics, or was interviewed and cross-questioned in detail, as opposed to, Harry's interviews for Spare, a lot of that was pretty soft. There was very little hard questioning. Tom Bradby threw in a couple for ITV, but Harry didn't like it. The facts are, however, that in the future, you're absolutely right. You really hit the nail on the head here, because this Oprah is part of their past. And no question at all, issues that they brought up, at Oprah, these issues can be raised in the future and can be very embarrassing to them.
All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about, as you mentioned, Harry and Meghan's new Netflix projects. We know that Meghan's wrapped her cooking show. It's cooking, entertaining, friendship. Harry's got a polo show. I want to know if you feel from a PR perspective and from a royal expert perspective, if these two projects, and maybe we'll just throw in Meet Me at the Lake as well, the scripted movie based on a best-selling book. Are these make or break for the Sussexes' relationship with Netflix? After developing a reputation here in the States for being difficult to deal with, for being a little work shy, we saw Spotify. Spotify played the game during the initial release and said it was, a mutual decision that they were going to move on. Then we had Bill Simmons come out and give us kind of the bare truth, saying that there were terrible ideas being cooked up on Prince Harry's side. They were grifters. So they have a reputation issue when it comes to their work ethic. So do they need to be successful? And not to mention, just to throw this out there, they went through multiple producers for their Harry and Meghan documentary, which was the only commercial success for Netflix so far. Heart of Invictus didn't hit. Live to Lead hasn't hit. Pearl canceled before going into production. So does Meghan's cooking show have to be a smash hit to prove that there is a return on investment to lure Netflix back into or onto the negotiating table? Is it make or break time now?
I think, firstly, you raised the important point, and this came up with the comments from Spotify about how easy they were to work with, or the reverse is, of course, implied. I do think this brings up a topic we, of course, can't dwell on because it's too sensitive, but one does remember the accusations of bullying whilst they were senior working royals, and there's very little doubt that there were a lot of people who were very, very unhappy working with them, working for them. So far as Netflix is concerned, yes, absolutely. With the fact that initially I think Netflix thought that they'd hooked really, really substantial treasure here because, of course, at that time the Crown was going out. And I think that's part of what appealed.
And at the time we loved them. We didn't know when they signed that contract, they hadn't done the Oprah Winfrey interview. And sometimes I sit back and think, how angry must have Spotify and Netflix been after cutting these like ginormous checks for Harry and Meghan to go sit down and give all the dirty details to Oprah Winfrey. If I were Spotify or I were Netflix, I would have been absolutely livid that I didn't get that exclusive, especially based on how intense those paychecks were.
Paychecks that are, according to reports, about $100 million or something in that area. Yes, absolutely. But that clearly now is where their pretty well entire income comes from Netflix. That's known. So far as the two programs, in looking into the crystal ball, I would have thought the cookery one will certainly, at personal interest, the fans, they're obsessed anyway, so they'll have got them anyway. I would have thought it would have quite wide appeal, depending, of course, whether she has guests and depending on how that's handled. What she should do what would make sense if Serena Williams, for example, appeared on it. If she's appearing on the polo, she might very well appear with Meghan. Who is she going to choose as her guests? Will it be Ellen DeGeneres? Will it be whoever? I mean,
Kris Jenner is one of the few that did post the jam. So, and we've seen her mother, Doria Ragland, spend some time with the Jenners or the Kardashians, I should say.
I can't help feeling that Meghan will have a partial success, if I had to predict. It's just that it depends who or how big her program is, depending on the guests. If she got, she won't get Oprah, I suspect, but if she did, if it was anything like that, I think that would be sensational. Harry and Polo, even if he has big names, I don't think there's the interest in the sport. Lord Mountbatten introduced it to the royal family. It's a sort of all that testosterone. It seems to be a test of royal masculinity, the polo, because William's obsessed with it, Harry's obsessed with it. There's so much interest in it, quite honestly, but that's within the royal family. I don't really see people as a whole being interested in the series on a game that not many of them play. They can't afford to.
I feel like that this is what Bill Simmons was saying. Harry has bad ideas, but Netflix probably stepped back and said, you know what? If we're going to see your personality, if we're going to see who you truly are, let's give it a shot, because that will generate public interest. That will at least generate some headlines, some clips distributed all over social media. And while the general idea is kind of a dud, I think that Netflix is thinking, but perhaps we'll see who Prince Harry really is if this is a game that he is truly passionate about.
And also, he's done a lot of charity work, for tournaments and so forth. Yes, it'll be interesting to see it. I can't, but one remembers Heart of Invictus, and one remembers the fact that that was 5 hours full of inspiring stories. You can't expect people to tune in for that length of time on a subject like that, and not.
It's heavy. It's just heavy. It's heavy.
It's simply not something that was ever going to get a vast audience. It was undoubtedly worthy. It was made by Oscar winners, but no, it didn't work. But if Netflix don't keep them, one does wonder. Lemonada Media is not Spotify for Meghan. It's tiny, and anyway, I gather that her work on that, the archetypes, I gather that's not going to be broadcast for a while. It's being postponed, so I read. So I don't think there's a certain amount of potential, but the public relations people need to get something else, something new, something surely. It's quite some time since Meghan changed her agency, so you'd have expected more. But if they have a certain amount of success with this, it should at least keep things ticking over. But they'll have to think of something before the end of next year, I would have thought, to keep Netflix interested with The Crown again. It was sensational, but it's finished now. They hadn't got a specific royal interest, and Harry and Meghan are no longer new.
Right.
Sensational aspect of things that's been played down since Spare, and that's over a year ago. There are lots of reports, of course, because if a son comes to town and he says his father hasn't time to see him, as Harry did of King Charles, if that happens, and then later it's denied by sources, well, it's pretty odd. So there's a really, really deep rift in the royal family. So it's really, really bad publicity. Fair enough. Harry's, the moment he hears King Charles has cancer, well, he flies over to see his father. But the optics are a bit odd. He meets for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. He stays, certainly the second time, in a hotel, which is preferable to a palace. And of course, he's appealing, and I think he has a certain case here regarding the security, and that's another issue. But this is all very strange. And the Sussexes are existing in a world that they partly created for themselves, that they would love to change. And there's no doubt that there's this tremendous bitterness that they still feel, or appears to be. Whilst King Charles is so ill, and whilst Catherine is struggling so movingly with chemotherapy, we're not likely to see any attacks on the royal family, I wouldn't have thought. But there's no question that what can the Sussexes actually do to get themselves into the front rank of producers or presenters, or what do they want? What do they really want to do? And it's interesting because that still hasn't been solved. Everybody thinks, when they think of them, of the attacks on the royal family.
Yeah.
And you get these awards that may or may not be justified, but again, don't add up to that much.
Right. So Richard Fitzwilliams' verdict is that potentially the launch of Meghan Markle's cooking show, on top of an American Riviera orchard expansion, or official launch, I guess I should say, with actual tangible items on it, could keep them afloat. is what you're saying. You're not projecting that it's going to be a smash hit, but you're saying there could be some traction there, and that could keep them afloat and maybe create new opportunities for them.
I would have thought that that was a good summary. I would have thought that that is what is probable or likely. But if it doesn't happen, then I
But
would be.
if it doesn't happen, we know exactly who's to blame, because we see the revolving door of Archwell employees. We've heard about, thanks to Valentine Lowe, those reports about people feeling like they weren't treated kindly. I mean, I'm with you. There is potential here, and if it doesn't work out, I place the blame on the Sussexes, because they like to blame everyone else. But at the end of the day, these stories are not stopping about people feeling like they were not appreciated that worked beneath them. I'll ask you one more question, because you've been so gracious with your time. I have really felt like the Sussexes should just go away for a little while and allow people to forgive and forget. I mean, is that even really a possibility? A, do you agree that that's a good solution? And B, will that ever be possible based on how expensive their lifestyle is?
I think one of the problems with this is that they don't think in ways that would permit themselves to take a few months under the radar. It is a difficult life, the life they've chosen. There's no doubt they broke out on their own, and to some extent that means you need the limelight. And very often when you vanish, well, just think they haven't done that much. They could perhaps vanish a little or two permanently. So I can't see that really as a solution. But what I do think is, if you're ever going to get any solution of any sort to at least part of the royal rift, you need to have this needs to be handled obviously privately, so that they could actually come to Britain, or Harry could, and we wouldn't know, and then we wouldn't hear, nor would Good Morning America hear, as happened when he, of course, came initially when he heard his father got cancer. So I mean, you're looking at something that more or less demands that they get all the coverage that they can. But the downside of that is, and of course with the Pat Tillman Award, a lot of the reaction, people don't necessarily appreciate the way they've been behaving. And also the problem, of course, was that this went on for some 3 years. They were only in the royal family as senior working members before giving notice to, as they wanted, step back, but it turned out step down a year and a half, if that.
Right.
So
Really. Oh, go ahead and finish your thought, and then I want to read just one line to you and get your response to it. Please finish your thought.
it's simply, I can't see them ever agreeing or feeling that it was sensible to vanish, or to, in a temporary way, for some sort of a break, or for perhaps to start something new, because I don't think they're particularly talented. That is the trouble.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie can disappear for 3 years and come back because she's talented, and we're eager to see what she does next. So, we've talked a lot about the Pat Tillman Award, and we've talked a lot about, the reaction to Prince Harry receiving it. In Arizona, where Pat Tillman famously went to college, played college football, then became an Arizona Cardinal, and left that over $3 million contract to go serve in the military. The Arizona Republic published an opinion piece by Lori Roberts titled, "How About Some Respect, ESPN, for Pat Tillman's Mother?" Opinion: ESPN should not give the Pat Tillman Award for service to Prince Harry. Pat Tillman was all about loyalty, service, sacrifice. Meanwhile, Prince Harry, ... One thing she highlighted is Mary Tillman raised her son. She knew him. She knew his heart. And then she goes into Pat Tillman's legacy and how he really was an American hero, and says, Pat Tillman has a legacy. And then underneath it, it's underlined, it's called honesty. Aside from the fact that Prince Harry left a life of service to kind of chase the fame and chase the dollar, I feel like this is another really important point or a really important characteristic that separates Pat Tillman and Prince Harry, because we have trust issues with Harry today.
That sums it up. The royal family, and this is essentially the main reason for the fact that I fear this rift is going to continue possibly between the brothers perpetually, or at least for a very long time. Could you or would you trust the Sussexes? People who judge those of us who are critical of them ought to ask themselves that question, because if you look at the way they've behaved and the way they've ruthlessly used the media to further their aims, knowing that the palace couldn't easily, during the Queen's last period of the Queen's life, it made life very difficult. And clearly, they seemed unmoved by that. So it was pretty ruthless. So absolutely, it's a question of trust, and it's also a question of service. Admittedly, they were miserable. They felt they were discriminated against, and we heard all about that. But a lot of what they said was untrue, and the facts of the matter are that they've manipulated things in the glare of publicity to the detriment of a 1,000-year-old institution, which is helping so many people in so many different ways in charitable causes. Facts are, as I say, those who feel that they have something to give and those who feel that they should get or be festooned with awards, they must ask themselves whether, if Harry and Meghan wanted to do something more, or to go into different fields, would they be hired? And the answer is possibly no, because they can't be trusted. And trust is at the center of this. Absolutely so.
Oh my goodness. Richard Fitzwilliams, so great to get to spend my morning with you, your evening for you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I greatly appreciate your wisdom, and I hope to see you again soon.
Kinsey, I've thoroughly enjoyed it as always, and I loved your insights into the matters that we've been discussing.
Thank you.